The moment you stepped beneath the canopy of the apple trees, you crossed a threshold. It wasn't a physical line so much as a shift in temporal quality. The agitated light of the day, with its sharp edges and hurried demands, had been utterly replaced by a deep, velvety indigo. It was the hour of unmaking, the time when shadows ceased to be mere absences of light and became tangible, soft presences, gathering beneath the boughs like pooled water. This interim space, suspended between the frantic energy of the sun and the cold, dense silence of midnight, was where the deepest forms of rest began. The great communal effort of the harvest was done. The bins were full, the presses silent, and the human clamor had retreated to the warm, distant lights of the farmhouse kitchen. The trees, the primary actors in this annual drama, stood relieved. Their branches, once heavily bowed with the golden and russet weight of thousands of fruit, now stretched upward, their silhouettes delicate and angular against the deepening purple of the sky. The final apples, the stubborn, secluded jewels, clung to the highest, most private limbs, awaiting the perfect, unhurried moment for their release. The air itself settled around you first, a cool, clean cloth against the exposed skin of your hands and neck. It was a dense, humid coolness, characteristic of ground that has held the sun's heat all day and is now releasing that captured warmth back into the descending chill. The primary scent was the fragrance of the season's conclusion, a composite note of sweet finality. It was not just the sharp, clean aroma of ripe fruit, but a richer, more complex olfactory tapestry. The pungent, earthy sweetness rising from the flattened grass, where a generous layer of windfall fruit was already dissolving back into the soil, mingling with the dry, grassy, almost spicy perfume of the late autumn air. It was a smell of deep abundance, of completion, and of the profound recycling of the earth, instantly inviting a deep, slow, and grateful breath that felt heavy in your chest. You began to walk off the main path, letting your feet find the natural carpet of the orchard floor. The grass was long, thick, and matted. Years of foot traffic and heavy harvest had compressed it into a yielding cushion that muffled your footsteps entirely. You moved silently, a ghost in the deepening gloom. This profound muting of your own sound heightened the delicate acoustic details of the orchard. The world's breathing could be heard most clearly above. The light breeze, now that the sun was down and the convection currents had died, was not a wind that pushed or hurried. It was a movement that simply existed, a long, continuous sigh, passing through the highest, topmost layer of the leaves that still remained. It sounded like the turning of pages in a very old, quiet book, a subtle, sweet caress of the air that whispered only of motion, not of destination. Then came the percussion of the season, the apples. This sound, the thud, was the heartbeat of the resting orchard. It was not a crash, but a soft, dull, definitive thump. 1, 2, perhaps 3 rows over, an apple, having held on through every fluctuation of light and air, finally let go of its attachment. It fell, accelerating for the briefest moment, only to be caught and silenced by the thick, cushioning grass below. Moments later, another one released itself, closer this time, and you could hear the slight, necessary shiver of the branch as it was instantly relieved of the weight it had carried for months. These sounds were so gentle, so utterly natural, that they served only to emphasize the depth of the silence between them. They were the slow, deep beats of a heart that knows its work is done and is settling into a well-earned tranquility. The true defining magic of this specific evening was the light. Throughout the long, organized rows of trees, dozens of small, square-sided lanterns were suspended by simple loops of hemp cord. They were not modern electric lights, but simple tin boxes with panes of thick, slightly bubbled glass, lit by steady, low-burning oil lamps or stout, unscented candles. Each lantern was an act of focused intention, a miniature hearth that carved out a perfect, cozy sphere of illumination. The light itself was a deep, uncompromising amber, the color of old brandy or clarified honey. It didn't try to conquer the overwhelming dark. It respected it, only illuminating the immediate radius around the tree trunk and the thick, flattened grass beneath. This strategy of contained light meant the majority of the orchard remained in shadow, yet the path forward was always marked by the next comforting golden circle. The shadows created by this light were complex and alive. They were not hard, distinct lines, but blurry, slow-moving entities. As the cool air caused the lantern flames to tremble minutely, the dark shapes of the apple leaves and gnarled branches on the ground shifted and swayed in a continuous, lazy dance. A deliberate, slow-motion ballet on the earthen stage. It was mesmerizing, A reminder that, even in stillness, everything is in gentle motion. You reached a central apple tree, one of the oldest in the grove. Its trunk was thick, ridged, and deeply furrowed, the bark rough and cool to the touch. The tree felt ancient and immovable, an anchor in the shifting light and cooling air. The nearest lantern, hanging perhaps 4 feet above your head, cast its full, generous glow onto the rich, dark brown bark, highlighting the green and the gray mosses nestled deep within the crevices like tiny, sleeping velvet carpets. For a moment, you didn't look at anything specific. You simply watched the light. You allowed your gaze to soften, letting the amber warmth seep into your vision, soothing the ocular muscles and settling deep behind your eyes. It was a light designed for contemplation, not for clarity. Beyond the immediate, enclosed world of the orchard lay 2 distinct bands of sound. Closer, but still hidden from sight, was the steady, tireless voice of the creek. It was impossible to place precisely, concealed somewhere beyond the lowest boundary row of trees, where the ground sloped down to the wetter fields. Its sound was a constant, low-frequency presence, a continuous shushing and murmuring, the rhythmic friction of water over river stones. It was the sound of persistence, of things that move without effort, and it acted as a deep drone note beneath the higher, lighter sounds of the breeze and the crickets. It was the ultimate lullaby, a guaranteed rhythm that had been marking time long before the orchard was planted. In the opposite direction, across the wide, still fields of harvested corn stubble, were the low, comforting sounds of the distant farmhouse. They were faint, filtered by the vast open space and the heavy, settling air, lending them a quality of rich, grounding nostalgia. You could just discern the low, rhythmic murmur of cattle in the warm shelter of the barn, a deep, resonant lowing that spoke of dry hay, full bellies, and the deep, uncomplicated sleep of large, domesticated animals. Occasionally, there was a sharp, metallic, almost musical clang, perhaps a kettle being set down on a stove, or the latch of a gate being closed firmly for the night. These were the sounds of human order and domesticity, distant enough not to intrude in the wilderness of the orchard, but close enough to wrap the entire scene in a feeling of being watched over, cared for, and absolutely safe. You shifted, retrieving a simple, heavy-duty thermos you had placed at the base of the tree. The act was a small ritual, a deliberate invitation of warmth into the cool silence. Unscrewing the lid released a potent plume of steam, and with it, the heady, spicy, sweet aroma of hot mulled cider. It was a complex scent, built upon the orchard's base notes of decaying apple and damp earth. This new scent was sharp, clean, and infused with the bright, awakening perfumes of cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, and slivers of dried orange peel. It was the smell of the kitchen, of human effort, and of conscious comfort. Pouring a small measure into the cup, you watched the steam rise and curl into the amber lantern light, becoming a visible, transient ghost before vanishing into the night air. The heat of the mug was immediate and grounding in your hands. Taking the first slow, cautious sip, the liquid was intense, thick, sweet, and searingly hot, instantly sending a fiery trail of warmth down your throat and into your chest, pushing back the evening chill. It was the taste of the day's work acknowledged and finished. You sat with the cup, your back resting against the rough, cool security of the trunk. This tree, you know, was older than you, older than your parents. It was a northern spy, planted by your great-grandfather 70 years ago. Its limbs were gnarled and thick, bearing the scars of countless storms and pruning shears. You closed your eyes, and in the silence a memory surfaced. Not a visual memory, but a tactile and auditory one. It was the feel of your grandfather's rough, warm hand on yours, leading you out here on a similar evening decades ago, telling you that a tree was not a machine for making fruit, but a historian of the ground. He had pointed out the patterns of the moss, the way the lichen grew towards the west, and the deep, dark indentations in the bark where a branch had been lost in a winter storm long before you were born. The memory was gentle and non-demanding, simply a quiet confirmation of continuity. The transition to true night was now complete. The deep indigo was exhausted, giving way to the black, endless ceiling of the cosmos. High above the angular network of branches, the first slivers of the late evening moon were beginning to cast a faint, cold, silvery luminosity onto the scene. A light that was a stark contrast to the thick, generous warmth of the amber lanterns below. You noticed a final sound as you settled completely, a detail of the night creatures beginning their shift. The relentless, tiny orchestra of crickets had risen in volume, their sound now a constant, textural buzz. A vibrational white noise that filled every quiet crevice between the soft breeze and the thud of the apples. It was a sound that told you the living world was alive and active, even as the human world slept. And high above, the gentle, hollow coo of the barred owl was repeated, a call of quiet wisdom and observation from the wilder woods beyond the stone wall. You placed the empty cider mug carefully on the grass, You let your shoulders slump, allowing the day's accumulated tension to drain away, not through effort, but through simple permission. This place, ringed by soft, attentive gold and surrounded by the sounds of the deep earth and distant home, were defined by what it was not. Not loud, not busy, not rushed, not demanding. It simply was. The lanterns, like silent, steadfast sentinels, stood guard over the peace. Their steady glow was a color that soothes the mind and settles the hurried heart, in assurance that you were momentarily outside the clockwork of time. You drew one last, slow, deep breath, pulling the sweet, earthly fragrance deep into your lungs. You are surrounded by the deep, resting energy of the earth, waiting patiently for the long, quiet sleep of winter, held safe within the ring of amber light. It is an exquisite, perfect stillness, a moment of deep, unburdened peace. May your rest be deep, your dreams be sweet, and your return to the day be gentle, feeling profoundly refreshed, deeply relaxed, and utterly at peace. As always, you are always welcome here at the Nap Nook.